But just people just making that up and saying, "Oh, but we were only living 30 years." Says who?
Yeah, and
Where's
then
your evidence for that?
talk about making things up, then we might as well just add in a little ditty here
Mhm.
about that whole blue zone thing
Mm.
and how, manipulated data, cherry picked to push a plant propaganda that
Mhm.
so many people are buying into. Oh, the blue zone, and then I think the statistic is Hong Kong has like the longevity winner, and they have the highest meat consumption, and
Mhm.
people really try to debunk that. It's very interesting.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Yeah. And why isn't that a blue zone? They have the highest life expectancy documented on Earth. I saw something from Dan Buettner, that con artist that made up the blue zones and then sold it to the Seventh-day Adventist Church for something like $68 million.
Wow.
And yeah, and so he um he was saying, people were saying, well, no, people in Okinawa, they actually eat a lot of meat. Well, now they do when the McDonald's has come in, and now they're not a blue zone anymore because they started eating meat. Like, no, first of all, McDonald's, the vast majority of food from McDonald's is not meat. And so if you're eating meat, if you're eating McDonald's, you're not eating meat, and that's what's making you sick, idiot. And second of all, no, I spoke to a lot of people from Okinawa who are from there, and their grandparents are the people that are, in their late 90s or over 100 and very healthy and living active lives. And they all say they eat like, 80+% of their food comes from meat. And they eat a lot of, pork and things like that. And fish. And the majority of what they eat is meat. And then, in Sardinia, um, Professor Bill Schindler went to Sardinia, went to the epicenter of the first blue zone ever identified, spoke to the same people that were spoken to in the blue zone. I won't even call it a study, the zone propaganda that and said, oh, these guys, they only eat meat once a week and they're so healthy, they're just all vegetarians. And they even said, like, why does everybody think we're vegetarians? Where the hell did that come from? Like, and they even said, they were like, and they're the ones they were talking about them, and they were like, this is what? Why are people saying that we're not vegetarians? And that they were eating tons of meat. And then one day they came up to Bill and he said, hey, we're gonna eat meat tomorrow. It's gonna be great. And he's like, well, what do you mean we're gonna eat meat tomorrow? We've eaten more meat here than I eat at home. And because everything was meat, they had just platters of meat. They had charcuterie plates. They had cheese boards. Everyone had pigs in their yard. They all made their own dairy. They all had meat around. And they had some plants too. They had some olives and tomatoes, and homemade wine and things like that. But they were very active. They're very strong community value and structure. But the vast majority of the food that they ate was meat. And then one day a week they had meat, which was, they're like, no, 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 no. What we do is we take a whole sheep and we put it on a spit and we just have like an all day barbecue. And we all just like hang out for 8 hours, just eating tons of meat and chilling out and relaxing. And so that's eating meat once a week, apparently, to Dan Buettner. And that's what the lie that he passed on. And he's trying to, cover his tracks. People are, calling him out on this. Um, but and then the other thing he's saying is like, well, yeah, well, now these people are eating more meat. Now they're not blue zones anymore because they're eating meat. And it's just like, well, no, first of all, McDonald's isn't meat, so that doesn't count. And also, a lot of it was pension fraud, wasn't it? Like they found that a lot of these people were lying about their age so that they could qualify for pensions early because they were poor and they wanted some help with the rent. And then other people that were already on pensions and they passed away, they just buried them quietly and didn't tell the government and just kept collecting a check. So it was rampant voter or pension fraud. And and so now he's saying, well, yeah, Okinawa actually has a lower life expectancy than the rest of Japan. And it's because they're eating more meat now. And it's just like, shut up. Like the old people would still be alive if that were the
So
case.
crazy. I know, because what it comes down to, and hearing what you're saying about how what I just call manipulated data, it's
Mhm.
like, how can anybody believe any study anymore
Mhm.
anyway? Because who's it funded by? Who's behind what agenda they're trying to push? And the money that pours into it's so costly to do these studies. they're definitely going to get the answer they want promoted with these studies, and they will maybe do 13 studies and throw 12 of them out. And the one study of the 13 that showed a glimmer of what they were trying to
Mm,
say by, whatever they have to manipulate it to get it to say that, these scientists are getting paid, you know, by by somebody who's looking for a certain answer.
mm,
And so I don't know. I think it really comes down to being, and how can we be skeptical of every single scientific study? Well, you can, you can when you start understanding what is actually going on with these studies and supposed science.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, so that'll be interesting. But they're making such a big push for this whole plant-based thing. And coming, from your work as a doctor and seeing this in yourself and in your patients. I mean, can you think of any good reason why they'd be doing this, or is it just purely due to push a narrative and sell a product?
Well, we don't want to really get so deep in the political doo-doo here in the
Hmm.
discussion, but I do think there is a global agenda to weaken the population, and how you do that is with plants. And
Hmm.
the elite are going to eat the meat, and they want the masses to eat the mush. And
Yeah.
why do you think they're starting, big on this Beyond Meat, plant-based burger stuff, and putting insects, crickets, and whatever into foods? I mean, this is
Hmm.
all ridiculous. And to think for a second that there isn't, um, what do we really think is there the pushes in regarding that they 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 really think that there's something with this carbon emissions? I mean, that's all a bunch of phooey too. So like I said, maybe we shouldn't get so political here
Yeah.
with my opinions on a lot of this stuff, but we have to really think long and hard about um, what the message is. And in my experience, the best thing to do is the opposite. They tell you to slather on sunscreen and fear the sun because of, skin cancer, and I think the opposite. We need sun in our eyes.
Hmm.
We need sun on our skin. We need to not put chemical sunscreens on our skin. And so therein lies, do the opposite. Our eyes have so many receptors. Our eyes are directly connected to our brains, and they're not there just for vision. There's so many receptors that are signaling to the brain the time of day for circadian rhythm. There's so much more that's involved in just than vision. So I try to really promote to people that the importance of spending time outside, and get outside early in the day. And then during the day, try to spend at least an hour, because we've all become, uh, I think the statistic is we spend 93% of the day indoors, and that's I think
Hmm.
part of something that we should really think about doing so much more of is just getting outside.
Yeah, I think that that's a big part of it. Just trying, eat ancestrally and just sort of live ancestrally to as much as we can in our current society. But everybody I talk to that sort of gets back to nature, goes camping, goes out in the woods, they always feel so much better for having done that. And I know some people that one guy I had on my podcast actually, he was working at a very high paying job, but he was just sick. He was all sick all the time. And just one day he, just went out and he would go out and go camping a lot with his dad as a kid. And so he said, okay, I'm just going to go out. I just need some time off. And like for 6 weeks. And he just felt like a new person at the end of it. Felt so much better. It was just hunting and fishing and out in the wilderness, and felt a lot better. Then he came back and was feeling worse as he was in work. And then he sort of did like 3 months out, on like a sort of a safari, out in the bush in Africa, just to sort of, okay, I'm going to test this and see what this is like. And it just really helped his health. He said, okay, that's it. I'm done. I'm quitting. And he just went out and just started living in the bush. And so now he's just out, just living in the bush in Australia, and barefoot, white guy, living in like a
Off the
stick hut.
grid, right? What we call off the
Completely.
grid.
Yeah, that's it. Completely off the grid. He hunts and like he does like endurance hunting. Like he chases down animals and he'll chase them. He said after they can't sweat like we do, so they get overheated very quick. And so after about a kilometer, they just lay down and they just give up. They're like, okay, that's it. All right, I'm done. That's it. And so, sometimes he'll hunt them. Sometimes he just does it for um practice just to see that he can. He just sort of tags them and lets them go. And but other times he does hunt, and that's how he eats. And now he's sort of gone carnivore because of that, because he's just like that's what you got to eat when you're living out in the bush. And he's just completely reversed all of his health issues. And there's a lot to be said for that. I try to get out in the sun as much as possible. I'm exactly in that statistic, the 98% of my day is going to be inside. And I try to like linger in the sun, like walking out to my car, maybe just stand on the lawn for a bit and get some sun on my face and in my eyes,
Exactly.
when I can. And then I gotta go to work, and then I'm stuck indoors all day. And that's a pain. But the hope is one day to just to be able to be outside more often than inside. And I do definitely believe that in its health benefits as well.
Yeah, it's everything, I try to wear barefoot shoes and I go barefoot as much as I can. I think
Mhm.
it's healthier for our feet. I think it's
Mhm.
healthier for our posture and our gait. And the whole thing with grounding, right? I mean,
Mhm.
there's a whole different aspect of this, what I just call the carnivore lifestyle, instead of just the thought of, yeah, I'm going to eat meat and drink
Mhm.
water. There's a whole host of health issues to think about living ancestrally.
Yeah, definitely. Um, so what are some of the groups that you run now? Are you just trying to help people just get onto carnivore, or what do you focus on mainly?
You know, I've come to realize that a bit of my niche in this carnivore space has come from my horrible 30-year suffering of carb and sugar addiction and disordered eating. And I have an amazing group where it's support. It's talking about um, the necessity for abstinence in people like us. And I feel that it's so important to have community and support. I mean, as animals, we want to feel like that we belong and that we're in a group, and to feel so isolated, uh, for the majority who turn to this way of eating, discovering it and doing it, it becomes socially isolating a bit. Family, friends, coworkers start to roll their eyes, and it becomes really an amazing support to have a group that you can come to and talk with. So in my group, I go live about 5 to 6 days a week. And it's discussions and it's all sorts of different topics. And um, I say, so community is the opposite of addiction, and addictions love isolation. And if anybody knows the plight that I'm talking about, it's back in the days when you're caught up in it, is as waiting till you're alone to eat, getting in the car and driving and eating and hiding the wrappers. It's all these bizarre behaviors that seem so ridiculous to maybe somebody who hasn't suffered this, but um, it's a reality. And so I always said, if I can help one person out of the misery that I lived in, then I'll be a success. And
Mhm.
I'm so happy to be able to host. And I'm right now sitting in a beachfront, oceanfront condo I purchased next door to mine that I've
Mhm.
renovated and created a carnivore beach retreat. And I'm hosting this
Nice.
summer 5 day. I don't want to call it boot camp, because this is all about just coming together and being with others who um, are living this lifestyle, and Yeah, so there's going to be cooking demos and walks on the beach early in the morning. And I'm just really thrilled just to keep going forward with the message. And I've also been sort of donned the queen of meetups because
Mhm.
I have hosted at this point, I think 30 meetups where I just, wherever I travel, I announce either it's going to be a lunch or a dinner at a pretty much all you can eat meat um, type of restaurant. And it's, they're so empowering. It's so magical to be there and be with people who get it. And so that became also my mission because as I walked away from each of them, I said, there is something really, really special about this. So, especially every year, I host a big one in New Jersey. Last year, it sold out at 125 people. I have a regenerative rancher up in Rhode Island who
Mhm.
comes down and with a chef. And yeah, it's just um, my message and my motivation is all to just have everybody get as healthy as they can and realize that you have the power to change your situation by what you decide to put or not put into your mouth.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's fantastic.